Kelly, what were your big takeaways from what we heard from the president?
Kristen, I'm struck by the president sending a warning to others who might use this moment, see vulnerability and crisis and chaos in Israel because of these attacks, and try to exploit that. The president making clear that that would not be tolerated, and talking about the outreach going on to other nations with whom the United States has partnership in the Middle East. So while Israel is facing one crisis, the president trying to forestall any other cascading effects that could follow this kind of violence and instability. The president also making a point that he will personally stay in touch with Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. That, of course, on its face makes perfect sense, but it is also important because we know from covering this relationship, which has spanned 40 years, and in recent years, there has been some tension between President Biden and the prime minister over some of the governmental and judicial changes Netanyahu has tried to bring about in the modern state of Israel. That putting aside now and really making clear that the U.S. will provide whatever support is needed. Already the U.S. is the largest partner in terms of military protection for Israel. The president emphasized that from the nation of Israel's inception, the U.S. has been a partner. So we also know that there have been other kinds of diplomatic efforts that have been ongoing prior to today, things like trying to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia following some of the other nations in that region. All of that, question marks remain. We also know by having the president's Secretary of State at his shoulder that he is also making calls to partners, allies, and outreach around the world. So the phones are working here at the White House in terms of diplomatic outreach, both to international partners, the president also indicated, to congressional leaders, and the volatility of this situation. Implicit in what our reporting tells us is the United States was not anticipating this attack. Multiple sources have told NBC News that. The president, even by his own comments about being surprised and awakened this morning, suggests that's the case. That will raise questions about what could come next. And obviously, there are tactical and strategic questions about how Israel will respond and how the U.S. can support that response because of the civilian lives that are at stake here. But the president was clear. Israel has the right to defend its people and its land, and we can expect developments and a lot of changes about how this is unfolding over the next 24 hours. This will remain a very active situation for the White House. The vice president's been in touch with the president today as well, Kristen, as you would expect, and you can expect the Situation Room is up and running.
Absolutely. Kelly O'Donnell, appreciate that. And of course, you and some of our other colleagues, in addition to everything you've just laid out, Courtney Kuby and others reporting the U.S. is discussing enhancing their intelligence sharing with Israelis to support with the Israeli government. Kelly, very briefly, before I get to Raf Sanchez in Israel, what can you tell us about that?
Well, certainly the partnership between U.S. intelligence and Mossad and the Israeli intelligence is a long and strong one. Amplifying that now is certainly critical for things like the president was asked, was there an intelligence failure? It's sort of implicit in this that a surprise attack, surprise always one of the tools of war that is most effective. How can they now step in and try to increase support for knowing what is happening on the ground, what additional threats are there, how to rescue civilians who've been taken hostage, and next steps? So a more robust American response helping Israel on this certainly would be in line with the partnership we've seen. Kristen?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.